Meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. We have a good slate of topics today. Well, actually, before we do that, I'm just going to go over what this meeting is. We have ongoing meetings on the third Thursday of the month this is for the Cabal ones. For these community meetings, it's every other month on the first Tuesday of the month. Topics are driven from prior meetings or requests to myself. Discussions are accepted for Podman, Builda, Scopia, or really anything that's container related, or even projects that just use those a little bit. We're happy to see those. We've got meeting notes within a HackMD, which I've included a link for inside the Google chat. Please sign up in there if you have not already, that you're an attendee. We will be talking today, first off, about pasta in Podman and Stefano Revio. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Stefano?
Yeah, that was great, actually. Yeah, that's not so easy.
He'll be leading us off first, and then after that, we'll have an update from Matt about Podman 4.4, and then we will have a Podman Desktop update from Stefan Lemire. I'm not sure he's in here yet. Oh, he is here. Okay.
I am. Hi, everyone.
And then we will wrap up with topics for the next meeting and any open questions or discussions that you have about Podman or anything else for that matter. So with all that said, I'm going to stop sharing and I will hand it over to Stefano. Stefan and Stefano, there's just a little too close there for me. So for Stefano, we'll start with you. Okay, go ahead.
Right. I don't need to to present myself. You already presented me. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, by the way, I'm with virtualization group. Try that. It's kind of not so closely related to Podman, actually, what I do usually, but this project happens to be. So let me share my screen. See if it works. Actually, I wish. Can you all see? Yeah, I suppose so. Okay. So first off, what's pasta? I mean, other than the thing you eat. It's a tool that essentially solves this problem. You put a container or something that looks like a container, and you don't have a network interface other than the loopback interface. And you might say, yeah, well, I should create one, but I cannot create one because I'm not root. So it's not a very old problem or an original solution, but what pasta does is pretty much this trick. It creates a PAP device which connects my network namespace to host, it's the same machine, but let's approximate it with the host. I will quickly go through my tmux setup so that you have a moment to familiarize with it. So this one highlighted in green is just a shell on the host. This is another shell on the host where I will run pasta. And this is another shell where I will run actually Podman with Slurp for NetNS. When I say that it's not a very original problem this tool is solving, I meant that Slurp for NetNS or libslurp do pretty much the same thing. So we are in our network namespace. This is similar to, because kernel-wise, let's say Linux-wise, conceptually similar to what you do with Podman. And so if I check now what type of interface this is, it's a top device, and I don't have currently connectivity on it, but I can have it. The best way would be to tell this tool to configure it. So here you go. I have an IPv4 address, an IPv6 address, routes. Okay, so essentially to sum this up, it solves the problem that as an unprivileged user, so if I'm not root, I cannot create a network interface to a network namespace, to a separate network namespace. And I need something like Slurp or Pasta. They will, both tools do pretty much conceptually something very similar, which is creating a top device. On the other hand of the top device, there is just a user space solution that takes frames from the top device when the container starts a connection or tries to send traffic, and sends the content, the payload of those frames on host native sockets, for which you don't need any permission or privilege. And the reverse trick on the other way around. So you get data from host sockets, and those become frames on the top device. So it's essentially a layer 4 to layer 2 solution. It builds in a bit of TCP logic, UDP logic as well, and some ICMP. I'm checking the man page, and actually there is the same man page for another tool, which is really the same binary, which is called past. This is a tool that actually came first. So there was a priority to offer somewhat production-ready alternative to libslirp for virtual machines. And then we noticed that it wasn't very different. The problem for network namespaces wasn't very different. So in the same way, you have libslirp and slirp for NetNS, where libslirp would have the same function as past, so it can connect to a virtual machine, and pasta instead has the same function as slirp for NetNS, so it works with a network namespace. What I showed you earlier was this kind of usage, pretty much. So I just run the standalone tool without any command, and by default it just runs a shell. But yeah, we can now see how Podman uses it. So instead of doing unshare or running this standalone tool, since Podman, the version I have here is 4.0, this is now the Pasta is supported as a network backend. So I'll go with first what you might be used to. This is run. I don't even need to specify this, build for NetNS. That's the default actually. If you run a container without root, well, I can keep it. Let me do this. They just moved around the binaries. Okay, so here we go. We have connectivity. That's a super basic container image based on Alpine. And now, since Podman 4.0, we can do exactly the same thing using of course. And there we go. So I'm not root. I was not root outside the container. I am actually root inside the container. And I now have connectivity. So there are a few differences between Slurp for NetNS and Pasta that you notice right now. First off, the name of the interface. This is always called tab 0. For pasta, it's called same interface as same name. So host, I have this EMP9S0, S0, yeah, and this is same. This is recycled as interface name for the tab side. Let's check addresses. So with Slurp, we have a default 10.0.2.100. This can be changed in Podman options. So if you do something like Podman run net equals SIDR something, you could change this address. In the case of pasta, we are also recycling this address from the host. IPv4 addresses, here we have just link locals, and in case of pasta, we have a link local and also one prefix recycled from the host. Actually, in this case, it's with the Podman integration, we assign exactly the same address. So first off, why this? Well, you can also configure them with pasta if you check the man page of Podman run. You look for pasta, it will tell you, well, by examples, you can do something that's essentially the same as Slurp for NetNS. But one advantage you have with pasta is that if you don't want to have NAT, so you want to have the same address without any address translation, this creates a perfect fake copy of the networking information from the host. Other things, well, let's check routes. So those are same as addresses. They are copied from the host. Also, let's check with Slurp what happens here. Okay, and those are clearly different because the addressing here is different. So we need to have this is the default gateway that you get with Slurp. With pasta, you get the same default gateway as what you have on the host. Same for the first hop of the IPv6 default route. This is just copied. So this decision actually comes from the reason why I started Past, which was the other project for VMs, where the target audience is more like KubeVirt or LibVirt or in general VM projects. And there, it's quite useful in many cases to create the pretense that processes running in a VM actually run on the host. So to make it somewhat seamless for stuff like service meshes running on VMs, or a single process move to a VM that used to be on the host, and then you might have application proxies. So this is just one possibility, and it's actually a default. Now that we check this, we can have a look at, first off, I wanted to see if there are any questions at this point. I'm going quite fast to leave space for questions afterwards, but we have enough time, so if you want to stop now.
If I'm a naive user, why would I choose pasta over Slurp for an S or vice versa?
So yeah, there are essentially two reasons that I see, at least. One is performance. So pasta was written with this use case in mind. Slurp is not bad. Okay. However, it was Slurp started in 1995 as something completely different. It was used to convert somehow a dial-up shell server connection into a full gateway to the internet, so to say. So it would give you a point-to-point interface when all you had was a shell dial-up from your university or company. And it evolved, it entered QEMU because, well, it implements a layer 2 to layer 4 mechanism. And anyway, the thing is, it was really not written with this purpose in mind. So it implements a full TCP stack, which we don't really need. It doesn't support rather basic TCP features such as window scaling, for example, because, well, it was not important if you had a dial-up, probably. It's quite big also, so it supports a lot of application level gateways that are rather crafted in some sense for Podman usage or for modern VM usage. This is one aspect. The other aspect is IPv6 support. So that's something I wanted to show actually right now. So I think the biggest problem I've seen while browsing Podman bugs about Sleep for NetNS is that you have two port forwarding modes for Sleep for NetNS itself. So one is the one that's handled by libslip, and the other one is rootless kit. There are two ways because rootless kit is faster. It actually can bypass the internal packet logic of libslip, and it can just copy packets back and forth without doing the layer 4 to layer 2 translation. And that has a problem, which is by doing so, it forces the source address. So when you connect to your container, it forces the source address of the connection to be a local host, because that's all it can do. So it uses the loopback interface, not anymore the tap device. So the only connections that can come through the loopback interface of local source address. And so this is the default because it has better performance than libslip. However, it will only work for local connections. So if somebody connects from another host to your container, you cannot use this because the container wouldn't know how to answer. So okay, the LIRP for
bottom line is you. Yeah. Bottom line is you would recommend we switch to default to Pastor instead of Slurp.
Yeah, at this point, yes. I think now I'm confident enough to say quite clearly yes. It took me a few months to reach this yes, but yes. So anyway, the problem I was mentioning is with the ZLIR for NetNS port forwarding mode, IPv6 is on. And that's quite a big feature gap. There might be other few things. I listed a number of these items at the beginning of the pull request I submitted for Podman. That was in October last year. Here. So the integration is much simpler actually if you look at integration, for example.
While you're pulling that up, Stefano, we had a question in the chat whether or not this is a new network container or new container networking. And I believe it's kind of an offshoot of Pasta, right? Not new.
Let's say, I don't know how to call it. It's a container networking backend. It does the same as ZLIR for NetNS much, so it's not very different. But yes, it's a type in the sense of the syntax. So, or a mode. It's called a mode, right? So if we look at Podman run, how are they called? Nodes, I think. Yeah. So yes, it's a network node. And you find documented it in the page. So you have from network, custom network, known, another container host, which just doesn't actually create a network namespace. Yeah, it's built for NetNS, and now you also have that. So yes, in that sense, it's that. So yeah, I was saying another advantage, at least for me, writing the integration. So this is all we do. We can just run the process, and then it will fork into the background once it's ready. And especially it will quit once the file system bound namespace is gone. So you don't need to track even the PID. So really those 5 lines do pretty much the whole life cycle management. The rest of the integration is a bit of translation of arguments for port forwarding. Right, so okay, did I answer the pending questions, or are there more comments?
I guess I would go with what's the downside of us switching the default to pasta versus slurp?
Okay, I haven't really thought of an answer to this question, but one thing might be that users might be less familiar with things such as default options. So maybe there are users who rely on 10.02.100. That's somehow a possibility. Sure, one can do exactly the same thing with pasta. It's a younger project also in some sense, but it's a smaller code base, and it's really designed with isolation. It has a much smaller seccomp profile, so there are only about 40 system calls allowed once we enter the main loop.
So one outstanding work is integrating pasta with the rootless network namespace logic where we use named networks. So there we still rely on Slurp, and I plan on fixing this for 4.5 probably. But so when we are able to switch there, I think that's a good time to maybe switch the default over.
So I would recommend that if we're going to switch the default, we do it during a full Fedora release. So Fedora 38 might be late at this point if we don't have that functionality, but it might be something we could switch the default for Fedora 39. I would like to have some playtime with this before we switch to RHEL, obviously. So.
Other than playtime, is there a reason, Dan?
Just stability.
Okay.
For 5 years, we've been using Slurp, and if this is better, that's great. But I'd like to have 6 months of nobody complaining about using pasta.
Yeah. So
the downside. I apologize, Stefano, but the downside of that decision, Dan, is that if we don't switch it till fall, and then you want your 6 months, you're talking about well into next year.
Right. No, as soon as we can switch it, I'd switch it. But
we are approaching a cabal meeting here, and we're half hour into this meeting, and 2 more subjects to go. So I'd like to ask
nice job, Stefano. Very nice.
Yes. Stefano, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about this or?
No, not really. Just to give some context. So Pasta didn't really have a user base before Podman. So the considerations about how young it is, well, this integration itself is actually quite young. Pasta as a project has been around for a bit longer, with so it's supported upstream by QPirt and also by DPirt, but the network namespace version is quite young, so yeah, definitely needs a bit of exposure for.
Okay.
And demo-wise, yeah, I will just post a link to the automated demo, because that goes much more into details. It runs hyperf, it shows I think 6 port forwarding and stuff. So I will just post a link to that. I think it was more useful to talk about it rather than me just running hyperf. Yep.
And the project, it's on GitHub somewhere. Could you add a link?
Yeah, it's not on GitHub, but it's here.
If folks want to go ahead and reference it, they can. I'll include that within the meeting notes.
And I will post a link to the demo. I can continue this on the chat, yeah, so that I don't steal time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Last chance for questions on Pasta before we move on to the Podman 4.4 update. Right, I'm going to move on then to the Podman 4.4 update. We'll hand it over to Matt and or Brent.
I will be doing the 4.4 update. Matt is not. Matt can't make it at the current moment, but I'm just gonna share my. I'm just gonna kind of go over some of the release notes. Can you see? Are you guys able to see this? Okay. All right. So
you sound good too. So
okay. Perfect. So we released Podman 4.4.0 last week. There's a bunch of features. I think they're user-facing changes and features, bug fixes, whatever, around 125 bullet points in the release notes. So a lot happening here. A big one is that we introduced Quadlet. It's a new CLI. Basically, it's a new systemd generator that writes and maintains systemd services using Podman. A lot of the features that we have are either have to do with Docker compatibility in our CLI, and there's also a lot of Podman Cube features, Cube Play and Cube Generate, stuff like that. And then in changes, one of the big changes is CNI. We're announcing that CNI is going to be deprecated soon, and we strongly advise anybody who is still on CNI to use Netavark as the default network backend. And then just a few other changes, a lot of bug fixes, again, particularly around Cube, Play and Generate, and improvements on Podman Machine around there. There's also some performance upgrades here and there. Now, if you install Podman on a Mac using the package installer, it uses QEMU 7.1 by default. And we're also using Golang version 1.18. Again, this is last minute, so I don't have any particular details of anything deeper than kind of the general idea of what the focus is for Podman 4.4 were. We're also doing a Podman 4.4.1 probably tomorrow with a few other bug fixes, and I think we forgot to ship the man page for Quadlet, so we're shipping the man page for our brand new Quadlet CLI. If Brent has anything about 4.4.0, he's on the agenda. But
I think that our team, and as well with the input of others and the help of others, performance of several common Podman operations was made significantly better. And that to me was sort of one of the descriptors of the 4.4 release generally was performance was examined, and that will continue into 4.5.
We want to, I think at the next community meeting, we'll do a lot more demonstration on Quadlet. So right now we're waiting for Quadlet blogs to be printed out, but Quadlet is actually a pretty big step forward and ease of use of Podman underneath systemd unit files.
Excellent. I put that as the #1 topic for the next meeting.
Yep. All right. I think that's it. That's all I had. But, yep.
Okay. Any questions or further comments from the team?
So to give you an idea, Podman 4.4 should be available very soon as default in Fedora, and then probably, is it available on machine right now? And on Mac or Windows?
That's a good question. I'm not sure yet if it has gone into machine yet, but the homebrew formula is updated, so we'll see.
Along with Podman machine, Podman is going to be updates of all the other stacks. So there's new versions of crun and builder and pretty much up and down the stack. There's new fixes and latest bug fixes. Both packages, all the packages should be in RHEL 8.8. Back me up on this. And 9.2. Which are coming out in springtime. And I think that's it, I guess.
I'm behind in the notes a little bit. Okay. Thanks, folks. And given that, we will move on to a Podman Desktop update from Stefan Lemur.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. So we have been releasing a new version of Podman Desktop lastly. I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it looks good.
Okay, so I'm going
and
to
sounds coming through good as well.
Zoom in a little bit. So the latest version that is available is the version 0.11. In this version, we have been adding a bunch of enhancements and improvements in the UI, and also a bunch of capabilities. The first one that you can see here is that we are now showing an information about the Docker socket compatibility. So it gives you a feedback if Podman is emulating the default Docker socket or not. So this could be very convenient for you if you are using different tools that are listening on the Docker socket. We also add a new feedback form that you can find in the status bar. So if you click here, you can easily share a feedback directly from within the application, and you can let us know if you are running into an issue, or if you have any suggestions on how we can improve the tool. You can also share your contact information if you want us to answer to your questions. In the other improvements, so we add in the machine configuration, when you are creating a new Podman machine, you now have the ability to define the path to your custom built Podman machine image. So you can do that directly from the settings. We also revamp a little bit the registries. So in the registries, you now have the most popular registries, and you can easily configure your credentials for each of them. You still have the ability to configure your in-house registry if you have one as well. For the proxy, you now have the ability to turn off the proxy configure in your configuration. So you can turn it on or turn it off depending on your connection and your network connection. So if you are switching from one network to another one, that can be pretty easily done. Sorry. For the different changes in the UI, now we have improved a little bit the alignments all of the different informations. You access to the detail of a pod, you can see all the logs of each of the containers running in the pod, and you can see from which container the log is coming. We also have changed a little bit the feedback on the button, especially the ones that you can see on the list. So don't forget you have more actions here. If you click on the kebab menu, so you can see some advanced options. Otherwise, I think those are the latest things that we have been adding in the UI. You also have the ability to select the namespace where you want to deploy your pod. So thanks to the capabilities that allows you to generate the Kubernetes manifest and deploy a pod onto a Kubernetes cluster, you are connecting to a remote Kubernetes cluster, and you have the ability to choose the namespace where you want to do your deploy. Another thing that we have been adding, and it's more in the release details, is that we add a air gap package for Windows and Mac, and in this package you will have the VM for the Podman machine. So you can do an installation of Podman Desktop in a fully air gap environment. There's also a bunch of improvements that have been done into the documentation, so you will find better documentation on how to install Podman Desktop on your environment, either on Windows, Mac, or Linux. And you will find also some great documentation that will help you to continue to more easily migrate from Docker to Podman Desktop if you were using Docker and want to transition to Podman. So those are the things that we have been working on Podman Desktop. Please keep going with the feedback, because we are receiving a lot of feedbacks, a lot of contributions from the community as well. So those are fantastic, and they help us a lot. So that's about it for the update. Any questions?
Can you show your demonstration where you took two containers, made them into a pod, and then pushed them into OpenShift?
Yeah, I can actually do that. So I need to open this up. We also add this feedback. So okay, so I'm just going to start those two containers, and let me just make sure. Authenticate here. Oh, I need to authenticate. Sorry, 1 second.
darn security gets in the way so many times.
Heck. So I'm using free hosted OpenShift environment, which are provided on the OpenShift Developer Sandbox. And I just had to recreate my account here. So you can see I have my OpenShift environment. This is the developer console. I have the ability to connect to this environment, and I'm just going to copy my login command and run that into my CLI. Okay, there you go. So I authenticate to this environment through the CLI, and now if I go into the tray icon, I have all my Kubernetes environments that are listed here, and I can see I am connected onto my sandbox here. So I have a basic application. It's built from 2 different containers. I can open my application here, open it into a browser, and I can hope I should be able to see it running.
This is why you don't ask for a demo when people aren't prepared.
Yeah. So anyway, I can probably continue. That's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do is that I will just choose those 2 containers, and here I have a button which allows me to podify my containers. So it will create a pod with these 2 containers and start running the container in the pod. So here I can see my application start, and I should be able to also open my application. So this is just, yeah, so here my application is running in a pod. Works better in a pod, right? So I can see, so it's just displaying the number of times I open the application. So what I want to do now is I want to deploy this application and this pod directly onto OpenShift. So I can open my pod, and here I have a small button which allows me to do a deploy to Kubernetes. So when it is doing this, it uses the generate kube commands from Podman to generate the Kubernetes manifest. We also detect that we are connected to an OpenShift environment, so we are creating routes for that, and using Kubernetes services instead of host ports as well. So if I just do a deploy, so probably already yeah, so I already have been doing the flow, so I already have the application here. I just need to either delete, but and I will probably have other resources. as well. Let's retry. Here it is doing the deployment and showing me the status of that deployment directly. So then it starts. So if I go back to my topology, I can see my pod, and I can also open the details about my pod. So everything is running on my OpenShift environment. So I have been able to go from containers to pods, and then from my pods to an OpenShift environment directly from Podman Desktop. It's pretty convenient to test an application from local environment to a remote one. So.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah. Any further questions on Podman Desktop for Stefan? Right. And I'll open it up to any questions or comments in general that people want to talk about before we wrap up.
I think Mehdi had a question about var run Docker socket. He basically asked during the Podman Desktop, why wouldn't you have emulation of var run?
So first we display the status, and now we are going to handle it as well. But it's also handled inside of Podman. When you start the machine, by default, it's going to look at enabling the compatibility mode by default. I think it was not the case in prior version of Podman. It was not the case in Podman 4.3, sorry. But yeah, we are also going to add a capability to just enable that from Podman Desktop. Makes sense,
good.
Actually.
And it looks like you had some questions also on systemd unit files and one-to-one relationships, and Valentin has gone ahead and answered that in the chat, which will be in the meeting notes if you're interested in all the details. And any other questions or comments?
One comment. I got the Koji builds of Podman 4.4 for Fedora 37 and used them to run a game service that I had previously been running under K3S. And anecdotally, the experience was that they ran a lot faster and a lot better under Quadlet than they were running under K3S. I don't have any hard and fast, like objective system metrics for that, but the game players were very, very pleased with the improved experience under Quadlet.
Yeah, one difference would be that you're not paying the penalty for having Kubernetes running.
Right.
I would figure it's that. A lot of the
I expect that's the case.
Yeah, a lot of the optimizations I put in were around startup time of Podman and commands like listing of containers, especially if you had large numbers of them. So, but yeah, getting rid of the Kubernetes penalty of 30% CPU and memory and things like that are probably going to improve a lot.
All right. That's great. Great to hear. Thanks, Martin, for that. Any further ones before? And I'll actually hop onto one real quick. Our next community meeting will be on April 4th, 2023. It's Tuesday, 11 a.m. as this meeting was today. And then our next Cabal meeting, which is more of a design kind of thing or design topics, more focused towards Podman and some of the other container tools and being a wide open thing, will be on very quick. We'll be on the 16th, next Thursday, I believe that is, or a week from Thursday, February 16th at 11 a.m. as well. Are there any other topics, questions, suggestions? Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording.